And we are live. Hello and welcome to Talking Doctrine, and thank you for joining us this evening for another watch party. Tonight we are going to watch I think it's a shorter documentary, so we may look at a few other things after the fact. But tonight we're looking at a documentary called Christmas, What Your Pastor Doesn't Want You to Know. Now, I have not seen this documentary myself. It was suggested by Marble Water, so thank you, Marble Water, for sending in a suggestion for us to watch during these watch parties. And also, that's an invitation to anybody. If you have a documentary that you think would be edifying and interesting for us to watch together, then please send it to me at talkingdoctrine@gmail.com. We'll put it up in the schedule and we'll watch it together. Because I'm really interested in what this documentary has to say, because I know that Santa Claus has nothing to do with Christmas, and I think that this documentary is focusing, just looking at the images on the thumbnails, that it is focused on the fallacy or the detriment of Santa Claus. But we'll find out. We'll see. Because it is Christmas season, and it's the only time of year that we're able to talk about Jesus, and people just don't get offended right away. So it is a great time of year, whether he was born in December, which he probably wasn't, or not. We can take advantage of and use this season for God's glory. We don't have to fall into, it's pagan, and so we shouldn't celebrate or talk about Jesus. No, we should worship Jesus every day. And there is a story in Luke and Matthew where it talks about basically Christmas Day, the day the infant became an infant. I love that term. But so it did happen. We trust that it did. We don't know exactly what day, but we are celebrating the day Emmanuel came to earth with us. And so we'll watch the documentary together, but I figured while we're still waiting on a few people to jump in, maybe we'll talk about, or we'll listen to what this Christmas Day is supposed to be all about. We listened to this the other day, but it's such a great song, such a great rendition. And if you listen to the words, that are being sang, it even has the gospel just put right in there. So let's listen to this, and then we will get into the documentary.
On earth and mercy mild, God
that song is just awesome. The lyrics are great. It's a classic, of course, but the new rendition, the modern tempo and melody, or I guess it's not a new melody, but the new tempo, I think is very encouraging, and the lyrics themselves are just beautiful. So that's one of the reasons why this time of year is so great, because of the songs that focus on the truth of who Jesus is and what he came to do. But tonight we're gonna watch this documentary in response to some difficult questions. This is new to me. It's from channel Tiborsaurus Rex. Tiborsaurus Rex. The link to the original that we're watching this documentary from is in the description already, so you guys can check that out. And it is in several parts. I don't know how many, but we'll see. This is an oldie, because it's back 10 years ago, back when you couldn't have it looks like videos over 15 minutes or so they split it up on different portions, different sections. So we'll watch this together and possibly talk about it afterwards. Alright, so without further ado, let's give it a go.
There are many people who don't really understand what Christmas is really about and where it comes from. There are millions of atheists, agnostics, and even a lot of Christians who have really been misinformed as to what Christmas is really about. If you want to be able to share the true meaning of Christmas, it's vitally important to thoroughly understand its history. So what I want to do is I want to take us through a walk through the history of Christmas, its many traditions, which most of us have pretty much grown up to love. This you can all follow along in the dictionary, history books, world religion textbooks, the scriptures, the church fathers. Pretty much all the major religion, or all the different denominations, will admit these things readily, some of them very proudly. Let's talk about the date of December 25th, first of all. You know, many non-believers are more than happy to point out that December 25th is not the historical birth of Jesus, and that this date is found nowhere in Scripture. They'll also enthusiastically go on to claim that this really is in fact the long celebrated birthday of numerous heathen sun gods. You know, in order to accurately represent the one true God of the Scriptures, we need to be able to be intellectually honest and take a real careful look at the historical and scriptural facts concerning Christmas. The high day of ancient sun worship historically occurred every December 25th, when the sun displayed its unconquerability, when it began to rise higher in the sky following the winter solstice. Hence, December 25th was celebrated as the sun's birthday. This pagan religious practice was the first historical observance of December 25th as being a holy day. So we can go back to the beginning of the story and take a look at really the first Christmas. The story, a lot of people don't realize it's a lot older than we think, actually begins over 4,000 years ago in the land of Shinar, also called Babylon. according to the book of Genesis, he was the great grandson of Noah and was the king of Shinar, Babylon. He is depicted in the Bible as both being a man of power and a mighty hunter. He also appears in numerous legends and folktales outside the Bible as well. It was King Nimrod who led the first world revolt against God after the flood, when he established the Babylonian world tyranny and constructed the infamous Tower of Babel. You know, Nimrod actually married his own mother, whose name was Semiramis. Nimrod's birthday was December 25th, the same day considered by pagans to be the birth of the sun. Nimrod was pretty much adored by his people as a god. Considered by many historians to have been the first sun god upon which all the other sun god legends were based upon, this Nimrod story. After God destroyed the Tower of Babel, Nimrod was, according to a lot of legends, was killed by Noah's son Shem, and his body was castrated and his parts were spread all across the land of Shinar. After Nimrod's death, his widowed mother-wife, so-called Semiramis, she claimed that she had become impregnated by the rays of the sun. And later, that next December 25th, baby Tammuz was born. Baby Tammuz is in the scriptures a lot of places too. They're worshiping baby Tammuz, weeping for baby Tammuz, and God didn't like that too much. As you know, he was born again as the reincarnated sun god of Nimrod. Semiramis also claimed that a full-grown evergreen tree sprang overnight from a dead stump, which symbolized the re-erection of the new penis of Nimrod, or in other words, the springing forth of new life. You know, on each anniversary of his birth, every December 25th, Nimrod would visit the evergreen tree and leave gifts upon it. That's where a lot of the Yule log comes from that they throw in the fire, and then the next day it would be re-erected as the full tree, and the serpent was wrapped around it. That's where that comes from, that story of Nimrod. In Egypt, after God confounded the languages at the Tower of Babel, the story of Nimrod, Semiramis, and baby Tammuz was spread across the earth in over 70 languages. In Egypt, Horus, the son of Isis, the Egyptian title for the Queen of Heaven, was born at this very same time of December 25th. In accordance with the story of Nimrod, ancient Egyptians used to bring trees into their homes for their winter solstice festivals, in which children placed gifts at the bottom, you know, and Sirius, the dog star, really a representation of Anubis, was placed at the top of the tree. The Egyptians even dipped balls in gold and silver. They'd cut testicles off of animals or sacrifices, and they'd hang them from their trees. It represented the testicles of their sun god Ra, like a fertility kind of deal. One of the early roots of the modern Christmas character Santa Claus was actually the god Molech, or Chemosh. Every December 25th on the ancient calendar, this is recorded in the Bible too, a public child mass or sacrifice was held. The head priest would stoke this iron image of the enthroned Molech with wood and burning pitch, and they turn it into this giant glowing red furnace. And then the people, they'd take and make a long list of the desires that they wanted, and they'd recite them to their god of prosperity, you know, just before they put their infant children into the red-hot lap of the glowing red god. And he was wearing a Phrygian cap, too, just like Santa Claus, that Phrygian cap. That was one of the caps on the statues that they had there, too. A very interesting similarity. That's actually the roots of the Santa Claus character. Kind of sick, the priests would interpret revelations through the screaming of the burning babies. So they'd get these revelations from their god through the screams of these babies. Kind of sick. In Rome, there was the largest pagan religion which fostered sun worship in the Greek and Roman worlds at this time was the cult of Mithraism. the other sun gods was supposedly born on December 25th as well. They called it the Nativity of the Sun. The Romans separated this winter holiday into several different parts. First, from the 17th to the 21st of December was Saturnalia, a riotous feast laden with drunkenness and violent orgies. Second, on the 22nd, they had the second feast, which was Sigillaria, or they called it the Feast of Dolls, when a fair was held, and dolls and other toys, mostly of earthenware, were given to children. December 25th came Brumalia, otherwise called Dies Natalis Invictisolis, or the birthday of the unconquered sun. This is when the days begin to lengthen after the solstice. So you see there's interchange of presents. That it all rings very true of what kind of we see today. There's numerous winter solstice practices involving gift giving, riotous drinking, decorated trees. The child sacrifice rituals are practiced throughout pagan Europe. From tree decorated in Germany to Thor pulling the magical sleigh across the sky in Scandinavia. Most of the Christmas traditions we are familiar with today share these same roots with King Nimrod, really, is where it all started. Then around 2,000 years ago, the world was changed forever. The one in which Moses spoke of, the Son of the living God, the Messiah, he was born in the town of Bethlehem in the land of Israel. Interestingly, this new Messiah was the only one whose date of birth was uniquely separate from all the other pagan messiahs before him. Most historical and scriptural evidence suggests that he was actually born during the Feast of Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles, when the Word was made flesh and tabernacled, or in the Greek, dwelt among us. That actually puts the birth of the Jewish Messiah, commonly known as Jesus of Nazareth, in the month of Tishri, which would be Septemberish, totally separate from the December 25th sun god birth dates. The apostles in the early Christian church, they abstained from adulterating themselves against their God by participating in these ancient Babylonian sun god festivities. In their scriptures, their God had clearly warned them that doing such actions, in his name especially, were really an abomination to him. Look up the word abomination. early church had no desire really to adopt the ancient December 25th sun god rituals, as it was very content in its enjoying its own feast days, which their scriptures instructed them to keep. Their Messiah had demonstrated and explained the meanings of which throughout his ministry. It wasn't even until nearly 300 years later that Christianity even touched the Christmas idea. Oh, yep, Constantine, one of the most interesting historical figures. The Roman Emperor Constantine the Great, he converted to Christianity following his battle at Milvian Bridge in 312. The next year, Constantine issued the Edict of Milan, declaring the entire Roman Empire to be Christian. Despite his decrees, really, Constantine himself was a loyal follower of the new popular Roman soldiers cult from Persia, Mithraism. Mithraism is, it's like many of the other Babylonian sun worship religions. They regularly grow by absorbing and mixing in with the new popular religions as they come along. When the Mithraic priests in Rome were converted to Christians at the stroke of Constantine's pen, they naturally modified their Mithraic religion to adapt to the Rome's new Christian denomination. Many of the old Roman gods were just given like new Christian names, although a majority of the Mithraic religious practices and traditions actually remained completely intact. Constantine, although he's Christian in name, he was really a follower of Mithra until the day he died. You can find bronze coins inscribed "Sol Invictus Mithra." They're minted by Saint Constantine between the 313 and 326. After his supposed Christian conversion in 312, Saint Constantine later died in 337. Mithra, the god of Mithraism, his birth, as were all the other Babylonian sun gods, was celebrated on December 25th. But with the new Christian denomination for the Roman Empire, the feast of Sol Invictus Mithra was then celebrated in honor of the new Christ. So they just switched it from Mithra to Christ, just the name. The first mention of December 25th is being celebrated as the date of Jesus' birth is found, I think, in early Roman calendars from 336. Judging by Constantine's edicts, he seemed to kind of favor Mithraism more than he seemed to favor the Christian church in a lot of ways. By his laws, he issued a lot of really strict edicts banning all the Hebrew feasts and weekly Sabbaths, which Jesus and his apostles and the early church had all kept. But anyone who went against Constantine's edicts and tried to do any of these things which they sounded Jewish, they suffered greatly, sometimes under penalty of death. Soon thereafter, the removal of the Hebrew scriptures from the hands of the lay people, which the Hebrew scriptures strictly prohibit the practice of paganism in the face of God, especially. I mean, just removing the scriptures helped to quell any opposition to the melding of paganism with Christianity that took place later on. Christmas was celebrated pretty much after that as the birth of Jesus by most of the church for a long time, pretty much until the reintroduction of the scriptures in the native tongues during the Reformation. Christmas before the late 1800s was really wild. I mean, you had violence and drunkenness, rioting, widespread orgies, pretty much echo to the holiday's ancient pagan roots. There were even times the midwinter bash got so out of control that Christmas in many cases was totally banned. When Oliver Cromwell and his Puritan forces took over England in 1645, they vowed to rid English of decadence, and as part of their effort, they outlawed Christmas. Later, by popular demand, Charles II was restored to the throne, and with him came the return of the popular holiday. A lot of people are kind of surprised also to learn that Christmas was not a popular holiday in early America. The Pilgrims, the English separatists that came to America in like 1620, they were well aware of the chaotic behavior associated with Christmas back in Europe. From like 1659 to 1681, the celebration of Christmas was actually outlawed in Boston. Anyone exhibiting the Christmas spirit was fined 5 shillings. Even Congress was in session on December 25th in 1789, the first Christmas under America's new Constitution. Christmas wasn't even declared a federal holiday, until June 26, 1870. It wasn't until a lot later, when you had a lot more corporate advertising from companies like Coca-Cola, and these popular poems came out like the night before Christmas. These things had a huge influence on the tone of Christmas in modern America. Christmas today in America has become centered on materialism, really, where the main focal point of the holiday is on fulfilling, the dream of more stuff. Many argue that this is not the case. However, one needs only to measure the levels of enthusiasm expressed in children, for the Christmas's different components. I mean, all you have to do is go ask a child on Christmas what he's so excited about, and you'll quickly learn that his glowing eyes are all about the Nintendo Wii, or the new Tickle Me Elmo. Whatever kids may be trained to say by their parents or pastors, this is the real fruit, the real proof of the pudding, watching their enthusiasm. I'm going to try to be as gentle as possible on this here. There's a lot of really, really good, loving Christian people who really sincerely do love the Lord. They've never heard of these things. They've
All right.
never studied
This
the
one we're
historical
going to give a
origins of
little
these
prequel to. It's good to understand what's, where the pagan Christmas came from. Oops. How that it's, how, it derived from all these things that we're learning about, and that makes perfect sense. But it sounds like he's going to go into, as in we should have nothing to do with it and leave it alone, even though we're good Christians and we just don't know. No, I totally disagree with that myself. I do think that that there is a benefit to understanding this, but if we're supposed to celebrate Jesus every day, and so just because the world has accepted this day, and it's the world, came from the God of this world, has accepted this day to push a false narrative, does not mean that we need to reject it in a way that people just look at us like we're crazy. No, we can acknowledge that the world is attributing the birth of Jesus, and instead of saying he wasn't born then, talk about who he was, the infinite incarnate. And so there's definitely a benefit to learning the information that we're learning right now, and I'm well aware of everything that they've talked about already. But it is very important and pertinent for people to know that that is where it comes from. But I do think that we are supposed to use this time and every time of the year, but depending on the opportunities we have to our fullest advantage. And instead of arguing against Christmas, we should talk about enhancing the focus of Christ during this time of year, rather than just rejecting it as pagan. So, I do think you should know this stuff, but to think that you can't sing Christmas hymns and celebrate the birth of Jesus during this time, and if you are, that you're going against God or you're fellowshipping with darkness, I totally reject that. And I mean, I've been there. We don't like having Christmas trees in our as the focal point of our house, There was a time when I wouldn't even have any Christmas trees in our house. But I get what they're saying, and there is validity in understanding this. But you can take it too far to where it's actually um, harmful in the fact that you're not able to be joyful with the things of the Lord and celebrating the Bible stories that we read. So let's keep going, but I did want to give that little precursor in here for that because it seems like they might be going that direction. It is good information, but it certainly isn't the time to just reject the season as it being evil. All things work for the good of those who believe, and we can definitely use this time of year every year to glorify God rather than tear down the the fallacies. Yeah, it's good to understand it, but instead of trying to tear down the fallacy, lift up the truth. So it's good to see you guys all in the chat, and we'll get back to it.
Traditions. I don't want to come down too hard on anybody, but now considering the unprecedented falling away from the church and atheism, it is vitally important that we check ourselves. We have to come to grips with the reality of this issue. Continuing to associate our Messiah with these ancient heathen practices and some of these ridiculous fairy tales is only really accelerating this falling away from the church, especially with the youth. This new generation is not investing its heart and soul in what it perceives to be an obsolete fiction that demands our attention. The Christian church today doesn't have the monopoly on our attention that it used to have maybe more than 50 years ago. The church today is competing with a entertainment saturated type society where these old fairy tales are not going to really cut it anymore. They're going to have to come to grips with and embrace the reality of who Jesus really was, rather than insisting that the lies we inherited from our fathers are somehow true. It is an irrefutable historical fact that Christmas, its date of December 25th, the decorated tree, the majority of its traditions, are a continuation of Nimrod's Babylonian winter solstice sun worship festivals that were later modified to engulf and absorb Christianity into itself. However well-meaning quoting the soundbite that Jesus is the reason for the season may be, that soundbite really has become atheist rocket fuel. And also, if you just consider the facts and the reality, it is that soundbite is also bearing a gross false witness against the true Son of God in lowering him to the same level as the sick, twisted heathen sun gods, which his people continuously battled with throughout the entire scriptures. I mean, any kid with the ability to read can quickly pick up an encyclopedia or a world religion textbook and quickly learn that the focal point of the entire Christian year has been stolen directly from ancient paganism. I mean, millions of young people who learn these historical facts, that they quickly assimilate Jesus with all the other sun gods, thanks in part to the unwitting insistence of the various denominations that Jesus is the reason for the season. And children of this generation aren't settling with fairy tales anymore. They're discarding them. Due to our repeated stubbornness in our adulteration with this Babylonian paganism over the centuries, Jesus is now perceived by a majority of Christians to be a fairy tale. I mean, if you study the polls asking Christians, even pastors, what they really believe, you'll see what I'm talking about. Christianity has become a cultural feather in the hat. like a dash of color or a family heirloom. God to most Christians is no longer a reality, as proven by our disobedience to God's most fundamental requirement that we do not commit adultery against Him with other gods. The bride of Christ needs to be faithful to her husband. Many people ask, why would we tie the birth of our Messiah to the birth of the ancient Babylonian anti-Messiah and then unwittingly follow in the shadows of his ancient child sacrifice rituals in the entire catastrophe? So we need to ask ourselves, what would Jesus do? Well, we should no longer leave it up to our wild imagination to decide for ourselves what Jesus would do. We need to consider the scriptures and see, what did Jesus do? We don't want to rationalize and conjure up excuses anymore. We want to walk in truth. So let's ask ourselves the question, what did Jesus do? Did Jesus ever celebrate Christmas himself? No, he was a Jew. He kept the feast instructed by his father. If you read through the Gospels, you'll see how Jesus actually expounded on the feast. Many of his greatest sermons were done at his father's feasts. The only thing Jesus celebrated in December was Hanukkah. When choosing how to live as Christians, we should follow his example. Jesus celebrated, taught, and lived his father's feasts. So let's ask ourselves another one. Would Jesus ever celebrate Nimrod's birthday of December 25th by symbolically re-erecting the symbol of Nimrod's cut-off penis in the form of a fir tree? Obviously not. But the reality is most Christians today do. A lot of people have the reply, but that's not what Christmas means to me. It doesn't matter where these things come from, as long as we do it for the Lord. But unfortunately, that excuse has been tried before. Remember the golden calf below Mount Sinai? Exodus chapter 32? Aaron gathered up all the gold and the earrings and the rings and all the jewelry, and he fashioned together this golden calf, and then he made the specific proclamation and said, "Tomorrow is a feast to the Lord." How did God respond to this pagan holiday done in his name? He was furious. He wanted to wipe out the entire camp. But God ended up having mercy on the camp. And it only ended up costing the lives of 3,000 men. And don't forget that this generation didn't get to enter into the promised land. Jesus warned us that we err and that we do not know the scriptures. Let's consider another scriptural example of this. Remember when King Saul lost the kingdom for attempting to offer up to the Lord only the very best of what he had recovered after conquering the Amalekites, after being clearly instructed to destroy every last vestige of paganism from the land. God doesn't appreciate these kinds of offerings. It has been written.
I think that was great in part 1 and 2. Good stuff to know, good stuff to learn. But I mean, taking it too far, trying to say that they are super spiritual because they don't celebrate Christmas. I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't celebrate the holiday, but I don't think that going with talking about Jesus on December 25th with the world is the same as the golden calf. That's kind of ridiculous. And he certainly has his ability to provide his opinion, and I have no problem with that, but I don't want to hear any more of that opinion, because that's all that one is. Certainly just an opinion. So I mean that was interesting. That was I was hoping it was more about um, Santa Claus and why he is so dangerous for children because of how it goes against the faith. If everybody puts all the children put their faith in Santa Claus as the same as their faith in uh, Jesus. So, uh, again, great information if you want to go back and watch from the beginning. The link for part one is in the description. Part one and part two were very informative and very spot on with accuracy from what I've done on my research. But the editorial opinion conclusion that they've come up with is totally different. But that was from Marble Water. And so I do appreciate and look forward to anybody sending in videos that we can watch. And so since it was so short, because a lot of our watch parties are pretty long, also from Marble Water, I sent a Giants video. This one's short. It's only like 15 minutes, I think, total. And it's an analysis of old footage of Giants by John Levy. We're actually looking at BitChute right now. No, I'm not gonna. I was about to put the link in the chat, but I don't want them to get all upset because it's a competitor site. So no, we'll just leave it at that. It's called The Last Giant. Or wait, I don't even know what it's called. I don't even know what it's called. Maybe that's it. But let's check. Oh no, pushed the wrong button. Okay, good. All right, so we'll check this out and see what we have to do with Giants. See what they have to say. So thank you, Marble Water, for the two suggestions. And if you guys have any suggestions, do no worries, Marble Water. Actually, no, I like watching it together for the first time with you guys. And so no worries at all. I mean, I think you understood. It was great info at the beginning, but that last one is just like taking it way too far, because there's a positive outreach that can happen during this time of year, and if people neglect it, they're neglecting great opportunities that God's set up for us. So it doesn't really go into talking about it. It's more of a, hey, look at this. Okay. Right. I gotcha. So this isn't really talking, from my understanding, isn't going to give us as much explanation about what we're seeing as much as it's just going to show us some things that you're not used to seeing, I'm assuming. So let's check this out together, and we will decide. We'll go with it. Appreciate you, Marvel.
Welcome. And today I wanted to discuss some analysis on a giant. And a giant that I'd seen before and was really amazed and thought to myself, this is the greatest video of a giant I've ever seen. And after doing some quick research, quickly became disheartened by the reviews of this giant, and which I shouldn't have. I should have reached my own conclusions. And I feel as if I have, but what I'm really saddened about is that nobody, I've never seen anybody, really take this giant footage and maybe do an analysis on it. And it's just been discarded, and it's turned into the idea that this piece of footage was made for a modern movie, and it's just, advertising. And I don't think so. I mean, having an eye, as I'm sure many of you have, especially looking at a lot of these older photos and really determining what is an old piece of either photograph or video, compared to what is not. And to me, this really seems legitimate. And we'll go through that here shortly. So here is this glorious piece of footage of this giant man in what appears to be Japan. And, it's worth the analysis. I think this appears, I'm looking at his shadowing under his feet when he walks. I'm looking at his muscles when he flexes. I'm looking at his strange shape. Let's just say he's not a giant. What of his strange shape? What of those, neck muscles and kind of shortened arms? And I swear that I've seen, statues in the ancient world that show men that look like this. And this is the best piece of giant footage I have ever seen in my life. That's all there is to it. Again, I mean, this man does not have the physique of a modern man. Now I want you to look at his footprints. Look, I mean, that's authentic to me. If you're looking at that shadowing, let's look at that again. Let's start at the beginning. I don't know. And again, even if for some strange reason this man was superimposed or, and was actually a smaller man, he is a fascinating man. Let's watch it in backwards. I mean, this man is really stepping, and this man has a very light and graceful walk for his massive size. I mean, he's light-footed, but I do believe that would be very difficult to fake, and somebody would have to go to great lengths, especially with this older, grainy footage. I mean, when I'm looking at the buildings back here, when I'm looking at those buildings, I mean, we see kind of Antiquitech up there. I mean, this is legitimate. I mean, and the faintest shadows, maybe you could superimpose some shadows under his feet, but not the shadows that are created, about a foot or two away. I mean, those are very faint, very, very soft and subtle that you can see at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. I mean, that is, if this is a forgery, then this is a master forgery. Again, if this was fake footage just made for a trailer, not even made for the movie, but for a trailer, this is obviously old footage right here that you can see. I mean, there's no way this was made in modern times and made to look old. And so here is a back view of him walking. And again, I mean, the footage is, probably some of the oldest video recording that exists. So this seems like the same scene, but from the other side, another angle, where he's waving. There we go. There it is. You see how he raises the left hand? Now let's go back, and he's raising the left hand. But regardless, another angle, you know, because the first angle is this one. Now that's on one side of the street, which tells me two people are filming, and he's down low. Look how low this photographer is. Very low, maybe kneeling. And now let's look at this photographer is up high. And as big as this man is, you know, he's probably on a second story even, zooming in a little bit. So at the last minute I found an amazing piece of footage. Again, much crisper, same footage, much crisper. And then I found an article, and then I lost it, and I found something semi-substantial but not as good. And it talked about, this video is from the 1890s, and the man was said to be from a tribe called Cha-Cha. It was said that he was the last giant who had lived on an island with the name of Ha-Ha-Jima. And this was actually chronicled in the pre-war Japanese Imperial Archive. And the other article that I found, and and I'll probably find it just when I wrap things up with this video, but the other article talked about his family that he lived with in Japan, and it was just absolutely beautiful. Now, initially when researching this giant, you will not find this piece of footage because the whole idea is that it was made for a trailer for the movie Big Man Japan. And he's supposed to be this warrior and this protector, and this piece of footage has nothing to do with that trailer or this movie, and it's actually very difficult to come about. You really have to do some digging before you get to this piece of footage, and it really throws the whole movie and the trailer idea off, and just an amazing piece of footage. So what can we conclude of all of this? Should it be so unusual that there would be one giant left over in Japan, walking amongst people in early times? When we look at this old blockwork in Japan, is this not proof that there was a giant people? I mean, they have left their traces all over the world. And again, I think it's a shame to quickly debunk this, as it has been on the internet. And, ancient Japan is something that's new to me. This whole idea of, this stonework and these traces of an ancient people. And here I just feel really fortunate that somehow this piece of footage existed. And again, I think, it would be in somebody's interest, in somebody who is shaping this reality or helping to shape it for the worst. It would be in their interest to create a stupid movie and pay someone, some amount to just throw people off. And that's exactly what people have done with this. They have taken it as, oh, it's just this movie. And most of what you see on the internet is that. I would say the mass majority is not really any kind of analysis of this footage, but rather, oh, it was just part of this movie. End of story. And so, yeah, I think, again, we're reminded of the ancient glory that once existed in Japan, most of it being underwater, as shown in this picture. And I think, really, this is just one piece of the puzzle. I had a prior video on giants, and I showed what I believe to be some giant people in Peru. And I actually used this piece of footage that I'm now showing in this video at the very beginning, and I just glazed over it. I really wasn't sure, and I watched it probably several dozen more times after that before I finally felt comfortable enough to present some sort of case for this video. So I do hope you enjoyed it, and please share your comments below. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Have a blessed day. Please like, comment, and subscribe.
Alright, so that was very interesting. That was very intriguing. I do believe that the giants were of old, and so to stick with that, I just grabbed another video. It's called The Untold Truth of Fallen Angels. Talks about pop culture. Pop
culture is filled with depictions of fallen angels, once holy beings that have succumbed to sin. But how and why did the idea of fallen angels even come about in the first place? Here's the untold truth of fallen angels. Fallen angels are basically angels that have given up.
This is a worldly definition. This is from grunge. So let's see what the world has to say about what fallen angels are. And so know that this is, not biblical truth. This is coming from what the world has to say about it. So first time watching this is not a documentary. This is, we'll see if it has any good info or if it just perpetuates the lie that the Bible is not true. Well, let's see. It's only about 10 minutes.
On the good and righteous path and turn to evil, right? Well, not necessarily. It's true that Jewish and Christian traditions believe that fallen angels were originally just as holy as any of the other angels, but fell when the most beautiful of them, Lucifer, decided to rebel and enticed others to go with him. But in Hindu traditions, it's a little different. They believe the creator god Brahma actually made some angelic beings good and some evil from the very beginning. Why? Because it's meant to illustrate the natural order of things and balance in the universe. And fallen angels don't even exist in Islam, where tradition says that all angels are good, including the ones tasked with overseeing those whose evil souls have landed them in hell. These angels are lording over hell, yes, but they aren't fallen, as they are still doing divine work. There's another explanation for Satan there too, and it basically says he's not an angel, he's a jinn, a creature made from fire and free will. Put a pin in that because there'll be more about this pesky free will stuff later. Historically, those who believe in fallen angels typically have believed them to be responsible for things like tempting mortals into sin, and fallen angels are tricky about it too, sometimes masquerading as good angels as they torment and tempt. How do believers know all this? Well, these days, most of it comes from the non-canonical book of Enoch, which was written about 350 BC. The text claims to be the revelations of Enoch, who was taken up to heaven and told the universe's deepest secrets, then shown just what would happen during mankind's ultimate judgment. Enoch shows up in other texts as well, which claim he lived to be 365 years old and eventually told his tales to his son, Methuselah, who lived to be an impressive 969 years old. Strangely, even though the stories of Enoch were influenced by the mythology of places like Babylon and in turn influenced Judaism and Christianity, the only place that all 100 chapters of the book survived was Ethiopia. And among those chapters was a fascinating explanation on false.
So the fun thing with the serpent is, how does a serpent talk? And not only that, but why is the serpent's punishment?
Fallen angels. One of the most widely told tales of fallen angels says it was Lucifer who rebelled against God and brought a bunch of angels down with him. But the story told in the book of Enoch is very, very different. It tells a story of lust. According to the book of Enoch, long before the Great Flood, angels and humans met and mingled pretty commonly, and the inevitable happened: children. Those sons and daughters of angels were a race of 450-foot-tall giants. The angels started teaching their giant offspring evil ways, and God not only imprisoned them, but subjected them to judgment and sent the flood to hit the reset button on his creation. Enoch, the story says, tried to speak on behalf of the angels and their giant children, but sadly, a lot of the texts are missing. We do know that Enoch was the one God selected to act as an intermediary to the fallen angels, instructing him to tell them what their punishment would be for their transgressions. They were to be condemned to the ends of the earth, with an eternity of punishment to follow. Early Jewish writers considered Enoch to be a prophet, but when Christianity started to adopt his teachings, he largely fell out of favor with Judaism. Christian writers then took the Book of Enoch with them when they converted isolated areas of Ethiopia in the 4th and 5th centuries. Though the Book of Enoch was lost to the rest of the world, it was preserved in Ethiopia and was finally brought back to Europe in 1773. In the meantime, though, with the Book of Enoch to guide them, Christian scholars and writers had centuries to let their imaginations go wild, leading them to the really convoluted origin of Satan as a fallen angel. See, that's not actually in the Bible, but theologians turned themselves into pretzels trying to explain how Satan exists in the first place. The reasoning went like this. God created everything in the universe, and therefore God created Satan. But the only thing God creates are good things, so therefore Satan must have been good at one point. He also needed to have the free will to turn bad, but since he clearly wasn't human, he must therefore have been a fallen angel. Clearly, these scholars went to the Princess Bride school of logic and reasoning.
Studying, you must have learned that man is mortal, so you would have put the poison as far from yourself as possible, so I can clearly not choose the wine in front of me.
Oh, and once more, there's that free will thing. Don't worry, it'll come up again. According to the Book of Enoch, the first batch of fallen angels was each responsible for teaching humanity about a specific sin. As Baal, for example, was responsible for teaching humanity about sex, so thanks very much for that. Tamiel, on the other hand, taught humanity about demons and spirits. And then there's Sherne-Haza, who is apparently responsible for that race of giant half-angels. Those giants, if you remember, led to the imprisonment and punishment of the fallen, as well as the Great Flood, which was brought to cleanse Earth of their gigantic sins. Perhaps the strangest fallen angel of all, though, was Penimu, who was credited with giving mankind something that led to all kinds of evil, the written language. With writing came knowledge, and that, of course, is really, really bad because it might lead to free will. The big lesson you're apparently supposed to learn from fallen angels? That knowledge and free will are bad and will get you killed, so the only way to remain safe is to choose ignorance and obedience. Funny how that works. Maybe the biggest diversion the Book of Enoch takes from the regular Bible is its depiction of the Garden of Eden and the fall of mankind. Everyone knows the traditional story from the Bible. A serpent, usually associated with Satan, tempts Eve into eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. There's that whole knowledge is bad thing again. And then boom, goodbye paradise. In the Book of Enoch, though, it's not Satan who tempts Eve. It's a fallen angel named Gadriel. And this is the jerk who also went on to give humanity weapons and armor and teach us all how to kill each other. Sounds like Gadriel has a lot to answer for. Quick, describe a fallen angel. There are probably some scowly faces, bat-like wings, maybe even some horns or cloven hooves, right? Maybe a double chin. Who knows? But it wasn't always like that. In early Christian art, fallen angels looked pretty much the same as their holier counterparts. One of the earliest representations of the idea that they were angels and fallen angels opposing each other in an otherworldly battle is featured in an ancient mosaic in Italy. Jesus is in the middle, and on one side is an angel in red with some sheep representing the home team.
I hope you guys are catching this as we're going through it. I mean, they're really they're mixing Catholicism with true Christianity right now, and then they're also trying to make it sound like it's foolish that the story that we have in Scripture, that we had to come up with some crazy logic in order for God to create all things good and still Satan be evil. So it's I catch what they're laying down, and they're trying to. This is directed towards, people who already are agnostic and rejecting the Bible because of reason, but just makes them go further into it. But it's good to be hearing what they are being exposed to. So this is good. I hope you guys are catching what they're laying down to their viewers' subconscious, trying to make the Bible look ridiculous. But it does give us the ability to see why people are fooled by this type of logic and these type of productions. So just wanted to interrupt to point out to, are you guys catching this too? It really is interesting for sure. But right now they're trying to, most of Hollywood, most of the world tries to mix Catholicism with true Christianity as if they're one and the same. So we're dealing with that right now. So let's keep going.
On the other side are the bad guys, a figure thought to be Lucifer or Satan, standing with some goats. He's wearing blue, which is the color of the damned, plus he has goats, so we know he's the bad guy, but otherwise he doesn't seem all that bad. The mosaic even suggests fallen angels kept their iconic halos, which at the time were a symbol of power, not holiness. It wasn't until the Middle Ages that images of fallen angels started turning more grotesque. During that time, something weird happened. Creatures from ancient Babylonian texts called Lilitu began to be associated with Adam's non-canonical first wife, Lilith. At the same time, parallels were drawn between Satan and the ancient Canaanite deity Beelzebub, and the ancient Roman half-goat, half-man god of nature, Pan. In the 14th century, these pop culture influences led Dante to describe Satan as lording over the depths of hell while sporting bat wings, and that in turn influenced the 17th century author John Milton to describe fallen angels in his work Paradise Lost as the sort of grody monsters we think of today. Remember those theologians who turned themselves inside out trying to explain how Satan existed? Well, they faced the same issue with the rest of the fallen angels and came up with some typically convoluted explanations. Until the 12th century, pride was the typical answer as to why fallen angels fell, but that meant God would have had to create something with a crippling, all-powerful amount of pride, and that didn't fly. So scholars came up with the idea that angels had been created with a natural love that allowed them to love God, themselves, and each other. It's the last part that scholars in the Middle Ages believe caused the fall of the angels. After Lucifer fell because his love was a selfish love of power, the other angels who fell did so because they loved Lucifer. God was largely an absent, distant figure after all, and Lucifer was their friend. Rather than condemning themselves to struggle for the acceptance of an unreachable father, perhaps they followed their brother into exile. It's kinda heartbreaking when you think about it, especially once you add love to free will and knowledge as things too dangerous for mortals to contemplate. According to the Mirabilia Journal, one of the most convoluted bits of theology that grew up around the legend of fallen angels is the way Christian writers used it to excuse and promote the persecution of the LGBTQ community. Scholars have long debated about whether fallen angels and demons are capable of love, with many believing that instead, fallen angels are consumed with lust, a desire to use others for their own ends. Indeed, Christian writers as far back as the Apostle Paul himself warned women about the danger of attracting the attention of a lusty fallen angel. But since they didn't write anything about fallen angels having lust for members of their own gender, early scholars decided that meant there was something so fundamentally wrong about the idea that even fallen angels wouldn't do it. This kind of self-satisfied circular logic was used as an excuse for centuries of persecution, which still continues today. Our contemporary view of fallen angels might suggest that they kinda got off easy. After all,
Did you just catch that they called people calling out the LGBTQ community as persecution? I guess they're getting martyred for it, right? Alright, let's keep going. I hope you guys are catching how, I mean, this is straight out of left field for darn sure, and straight out of Deception Alley for sure. But we got a short minute and we'll finish it up, see how bad it gets.
although they might be in hell, they aren't exactly at the mercy of the demons there because they kind of are those demons, right? Well, not exactly. According to the Jewish Virtual Library, the 7 archangels, those are the leaders of the good angels who stayed loyal to God, count the punishing of the fallen angels among their heavenly duties. Each one of the archangels was in charge of particular facets of the otherworldly life. Jeremiah, for example, kept watch over the souls in the underworld, while Michael protects Israel. Gabriel is the overseer of paradise, and Uriel leads the host. They're the ones with direct access to God, and they're also in charge of punishing the fallen. Punish how? Take Azazel, who according to some sources was the one who taught mankind how to make weapons rather than Gadriel. According to the Watkins Dictionary of Angels, Azazel was punished by Raphael, who put him in chains, threw him in a pit full of sharp rocks in the middle of the desert, and brought the darkness down on him while he waited for his condemnation after the final judgment. That doesn't sound so great after all, and it's a pretty steep price to pay for expressing love and free will. Better luck next time, fallen angels. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more grunge videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.
Yeah, no thank you. No thank you. I don't think I want to subscribe for any reason. But give me 1 second, guys. I'm actually setting up setting up the next watch party right now, because this next one that I'm about to play is a little bit longer. It's still kind of early, and so we will go ahead and shift over. This next one is by Trey Smith. It's a great documentary. It's called Nephilim, and a whole bunch of other different things. We'll read it in a second, but it should have its own broadcast so that people can view it. It's going to be Talking Doctrine 240. We'll start this at 11. And let me go get the link for you guys. Oh no, don't start streaming. No, don't do that. Alright. I think I've got it. Hold on. So, I believe that's on my clipboard. There you go. So if you guys want to head over there, we're just gonna shift. Give me just a couple minutes, and I'm going to get this next watch party going. It's called Nephilim, True Story of Satan, Fallen Angels, Giants, Aliens, Hybrids, Elongated Skulls, and Nephilim. But this was you know what? This was good. But let's real quick while we're on this one. I guess I need to set
prior to taking the Israel.
Because he did just put out a new
CNN
video.
and pretty much all of your major news networks claim that there's absolutely no fraud and the Smartmatic software is the safest thing since sliced bread. Well, guys, this is one of your own news reports from roughly 2006.
Antonio Mujica and his partner Alfredo Anzola received a small business loan from the Venezuelan government only months before the recall election. These corporate registration documents from Venezuela show the Venezuelan government owned 28% of the stock of another company they started, Bizta, which adapted voting software for the Smartmatic machines in the 2004 elections. The same document shows a Chavez government minister, Omar Montillo, was on the board of directors. The Chavez government gave Bizta, Smartmatic, and another company a $91 million contract to run voting machines for the 2004 election. The next year, the owners of Smartmatic, primarily owned by Venezuelan businessmen, bought Sequoia, one of the top electronic voting system companies in the United States, for $16 million. Smartmatic is a labyrinth of international holding companies owned by Venezuelan businessmen. Smartmatic Group NV of Curacao, Netherlands, Antilles owns Smartmatic International BV of Amsterdam, Netherlands, owns Smartmatic Corporation of Florida, which bought Sequoia Voting Systems of California, USA. When Smartmatic bought the U.S. voting machine companies, the U.S. government did not review the sale. Many experts say those voting machines were manipulated in Venezuela to give President Hugo Chavez a victory.
So what happened in this election, no matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, what we all saw on November 3rd was that Trump was way ahead in the swing states by hundreds and hundreds of thousands of votes, more than they probably anticipated. Then everything got shut down, and then in the morning, Joe Biden had popped up ahead. Well, gee, George.
Exit polls done by the U.S. firm Penn, Schoen, and Berland had Chavez losing 41% to 59%. But the next day, Chavez declared victory, reversing the score, saying he won 59% of the vote.
Everything was computed in the favor of the government. So the only explanation is that the Smartmatic machines had been programmed in that way.
A Harvard mathematician crunched the numbers on the Venezuelan election.
It had to be the Smartmatic system. All these machines talk to a central computer and report on their results. And in that mechanism, as they communicate with the central machine can report anything.
Smartmatic is technically based in Boca Raton, Florida, but the president of the company, Jack Blaine, testified to the Chicago City Council. Fewer than a dozen Smartmatic employees work in Florida. The majority of the workers are based in Venezuela.
You couldn't make this stuff up. I mean, guys, humbly speaking, this is CNN's own reporting, which is why people are probably making an exodus from most of their mainstream medias and an exodus from states that are Democrat run, where they're crushed. The truth is the people have been crushed forever in those. I know a lot of people in California, and they all voted, all the ones that I know, voted Trump this time because they can't survive it. Here's the truth from my view, is that bogus reporting has gone all the way back to the days of Gilgamesh, on the Epic of Gilgamesh, and further back than that, the days of Nimrod, the Tower of Babel. I'm praying, and I ask you to pray with me, that all of this gets sorted out. I'm also praying for this election in Georgia. Pray with me. All of you in Georgia, go out and vote. Your country is on the line. In the meantime, you can come over to God in a Nutshell, where we have got entire streams at this point, lots of documentaries on all sorts of cool stuff to take your mind. I think you know what went on in this election. Even CNN knows what went on in this election. They did the reporting on it. Over at God in a Nutshell, we have whole streams of films for you to watch immediately, pre-flood. I'm working on the film Exodus and the film Nimrod. I'm hoping and I believe that just like the books, that they'll be the best in the world. They'll be the best in the world. Because God in a Nutshell, there's stuff over there that you can trust from reliable sources. I'm Trey Smith of God in a Nutshell. God bless every last one of you and your families.
On the other side of the screen. He's still doing the same thing. I do enjoy Trey Smith. I've got the link in the description of the next watch party to get to his channel, and I just realized that he's still putting out content. He's got things from a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago. So I really enjoyed his documentaries. We'll be watching a few of them. We're watching one of them tonight. And so if you guys want to go over to the chat room over there, I think that's the link again. You can click on that. And that was a pretty funny pun. Check that link, and we'll meet over there in a couple minutes. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you, Marble Water, for sending that over. It was very interesting and actually edifying to see what they're pushing. And then also with the Christmas thing, those are good things to know. But the conclusion I do disagree with that we heard. But we'll go dive deeper into the Nephilim and the giants. There's some really good evidence from the documentary we're about to watch. So if you guys want to head over there, we'll watch that together. But appreciate everybody being here, and we will talk soon. Again, this was Christmas, What Your Pastors Don't Want You to Know, and also a look into an analysis of old footage of giants from Japan, which was very interesting. It got us into where we're going now with this next one. So meet you guys over there in a few minutes. Till then, a couple minutes. Take care, God bless, and good night.